The conversation about political affiliation and mental illness is oftentimes fraught with misinformation and aggression, which comes from both sides of the political aisle. A lot of conservatives insist that liberals are mentally ill and that liberalism itself causes mental illness. On the other hand, liberals argue that only conservatives can be mentally ill because of their supposed backwardness and lack of open-mindedness. What does science say about this topic, though? Is there any data to back up what is being said by either of these groups? Let's look at the claim that liberals are generally more mentally ill than conservatives. According to research conducted by social scientists at Columbia University, liberals are more prone to being diagnosed with a mental illness and less likely to report being happy in comparison to conservatives. The reasons given by this magazine, or at least some of the reasons, are that it might be because liberals tend to worry more about things such as, quote, racial injustice, income inequality, gun violence, and climate change, end quote. Teens were also affected by a rise in mental illnesses, and though this effect has been observed in teens of all political persuasions, liberal teens were more negatively affected by it. This rate is even sharper for female liberal teens from a lower socioeconomic background. From this data alone, we can see that liberals tend to be more likely to be mentally ill than conservatives. This isn't to say that conservatives never experience a mental illness, but they're less likely to. The question we're trying to answer here is how liberal ideology can negatively affect its adherents' emotional well-being. The data seems to suggest that certainly is the case, but maybe there is more to it. Is it possible that every part of liberal ideology causes a mental illness, and so we should therefore abandon it in favor of making everyone a conservative? I think that would not be a good move. It would also not be a good move if we did the reverse, which is try to eliminate conservatism completely and have everyone become ideologically liberal. What does liberal ideology teach exactly? What are some key tenets of it? According to Wikipedia, liberal ideology is basically, quote, believing in equality and individual liberty, supporting private property and individual rights, supporting the idea of limited constitutional government, recognizing the importance of related values such as pluralism, toleration, autonomy, bodily integrity, and consent, end quote. This seems to be a good thing for society to hold, but it's hard to see this playing out amongst many liberals today. It's oftentimes the case that liberals are the first ones to cancel others who they don't like, especially more conservative speakers and commentators. One major example would be the banning of Ben Shapiro from speaking at University of California at Berkeley. The previous time a conservative person was protested was in 2016 when students became violent and caused a total of $100,000 of damage, which happened as a result of many students using Molotov cocktails, fireworks, and rocks. This sort of fanfare eventually called into question whether the birthplace of free speech in the 1960s, Berkeley, is abandoning its principles on this issue based on the speaker's political ideology. I think one wouldn't be so hard-pressed as to figure out the answer to this very easy question. In the end, I think that it is clear that liberals tend to be more prone towards being mentally ill than conservatives are. But as I mentioned earlier, both groups have seen an increase in rates of mental illness. No doubt social media and increasing political polarization play a major role in contributing to this rise. But there are other factors as well. For example, our culture has not only become more liberal, but extremely more liberal. I believe this comes as no surprise, because this is simply a reaction and an overcorrection in the other direction to our previously more conservative culture of the 50s and 60s. This sort of rebellion is more prominent among younger people, who have historically been consistently more liberal than their older counterparts. It is theorized that the older one gets, the more conservative they become. This makes sense because a lot of liberal ideology is stooped in idealism, what the world should be. As one ages, they gain more understanding and wisdom about how things really are, and they therefore adapt to such changes instead of endlessly complain about them. This is a sign of maturity. But I am in no way saying that being liberal automatically makes one less mature. It just so happens that greater maturity makes one more in favor of stability and hence conservatism. So all in all, what you decide to believe is up to you. Just make sure that you always anchor yourself in the truth instead of becoming an ideologue. Being a liberal or conservative is not a problem. The problem is when someone refuses to look at the empirical evidence and adjust their worldview according to it. That becomes an issue. Being an ideologue and an extremist is never going to be good for your mental health, no matter how sincere or passionate you are about your belief system. Just keep that in mind. So that's it for this video. If you like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and share to get notified about more videos like this one. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.